Greetings, everyone, and thanks for joining us for today's webinar. My name is Andreas Benokratis, and I'm the product manager for Ansible Network Automation, and I'll be your MC today along with Carrie Drummond from Ansible Marketing. Today, Ansible Network webinars, the Ansible webinar today is a guest webinar led by A10 Networks entitled Intent-Based Network Load Balancing with Ansible. Now, this guest webinar is being led by a great crew from A10, Jivan Sharma, Fadi Havez, and Michael Durant from A10. Jivan is a solution architect, Fadi is a systems engineer, and Michael is a software engineer with A10. We are extremely excited to have them present for the first time with us here at Ansible on integrating with Ansible Network Automation. Now, before we begin, though, I do want to go over a few housekeeping items. First, if you have any questions during the presentation, we ask that you use the questions feature in the webinar app. All of you will be on mute. You are not able to speak live to us and ask questions. Therefore, you have to do them via text in the questions area. So in the GoToWebinar control panel. Again, you will be on, all participants will be on mute for the duration of the webinar, so don't have to worry about being off mute other than the folks here presenting. If there's time at the end of the webinar, we'll address as many questions as possible. We'll try and cover as many as we can during them, so keep an eye on that. And last but not least, this webinar is being recorded and will be made available on the ansible.com training and webinars section by next week. So without further ado, let's kick things off. So we're here on the webinar agenda. Moving forward, we're going to talk a little bit about, primarily, we're going to talk a little bit about some of the events coming up from Ansible, what they're hosting, and then jump right into the actual A10 introduction, and then an intro around intelligent automation solutions and the integration with Ansible. Next slide, Carrie. Now, before we actually jump into the good stuff, the reason why you're here, just want to remind you all of some of the events that Ansible is hosting globally. So Ansible Automates, which is basically a taste of Ansible Fest. It's a one-day free session. If you're new to Ansible or you really don't know where to begin and you're just a beginner trying to understand everything around Ansible, we have a couple events, Rome, Chicago, and Milan. I personally will actually be in Chicago, so it'll be fun. If you're going to be braving some of the cold, I may see you there next week. Next slide. And we also have, if you're more technical, we can actually start working on, you can show some technical workshops. These are hands-on, in-person, on-site, free workshops. We have non-networking workshops. We wanted to host networking workshops. So these are kind of route switch based workshops. There's one in New Jersey, one in Florida, and one in Charlotte. So keep an eye on ansible.com/workshops if you're interested in some other workshops as well. Next slide. And we are extremely excited. We can't hold our excitement too much longer to talk about Ansible Fest. If you haven't seen, we announced Ansible Fest Atlanta is now going to be in September 24th through 26th. Very excited about that. And we will be excited to have you there. So you'll be able to start to sign up for those here in the next couple of months. We've just announced it. So if you're wanting to sign up and attend, keep an eye on that. If you sign up for this webinar, you're already going to be on our mailing list, and we'll tell you when you can start signing that up. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to A10, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Andreas. So this is Jeevan. I'm going to talk about a little bit about our company, what we do, and then I'm going to hand off to the next person to go more deeper into the Ansible modules that we have developed for automation. So let me start with this. A10 was founded back in 2004. Back then, the goal was to build the fastest, most scalable, and highest performing load balancer in the industry, leveraging the x86 hardware and a shared memory architecture to deliver small form factor appliances. We had tremendous success with that. Today we have about 6,200 customers. We have 900 employees. It's a mid-sized company. We have customers in more than 80 countries today. We operate in 80 countries. We have more than 200 patents. Today, we are protecting the largest enterprise cloud provider in the world with our highest performing application and network security solutions in the industry in magnitudes of layer 4 and layer 7 scale. Our highest performing solutions are deployed in mission critical environments by the top 3 service providers in North America and Japan. So that talks about our performance and our scale that we started out with. In 2007, when A10 built its first ADC platform, that was the first time we built the ADC platform, the scalability was unprecedented in the industry, and that benefited the largest service providers and cloud providers like Yahoo, NTT, KDDI, Comcast, and others who deployed this in their networks. Since then, we have stayed on that course, and we have offered the first virtual and physical high-performing ADC CGN platforms. Starting in 2016, we acquired Apsito, which was a cloud-based controller company to complement our controller-based multi-cloud management, analytics, and visibility deployments for application networking and security services. Currently, we are in the next phase of technology disruptions where we are focusing a lot on intelligent automation and connected intelligence for our customers. Next slide, please. So these are our intelligent automation solutions. As you can see, our Harmony controller is really at the heart of it, which is our central management, analytics, and visibility platform. The services that we offer today, we offer DDoS protection at scale. We have SSL inspection, which is best in class in the industry. We have a converged firewall solution for our service provider customers. And of course, we have load balancing and IPv4 preservation CGNAT solutions that we started off with as a company. Next slide, please. So today, if you look at it, we seamlessly integrate into the DevOps and SecOps shops where we have integration with the private and public cloud players like VMware, Cisco. We have integration into OpenStack. We are heavy on the automation side where we have partnered with Ansible. So we have Ansible automation, network automation modules for almost all our services that we're going to talk about later today. Harmony controller is really at the center of everything for us, where we see Harmony controller as kind of the intelligent enabler of intelligent automation services that we offer. Next slide. Now, when it comes to multi-cloud, our services are available in all clouds. So you can deploy A10 ACOS software anywhere. You can deploy it in public clouds such as AWS, Azure, Google Cloud, Alibaba, whatever. If you have an on-prem solution, if you have your own private data center, you can deploy our appliances, which are high-performing physical appliances. You can deploy our virtual solution on any hypervisor of your choice. You can deploy us as bare metal ACOS instances, or you can also deploy us in a container in your container environment, be it Docker container, Docker, Kubernetes, OpenShift, or whatever platform you use. And next slide. Now, we understand that automation matters. It reduces the human error, makes it faster for you to deploy your app services, and adds a security layer on top of it. Again, it helps you detect security attacks much faster and allows you to respond to it in a real-time manner. And so, with that goal in mind, our A10 portfolio is strategically built around intelligent automation solutions. We are here to automate the application and networking infrastructure for you. We have full REST API capabilities built into our advanced core operating system or ACOS that powers all our services or solutions that we offer. And we have built our network automation libraries, leveraging our REST API capabilities with Ansible to allow customers to automate their A10 deployments. Next slide. I'm going to pass on to my colleague Fadi, who's going to talk about the Ansible automation in depth.
Thank you, Jiban. Hi, I'm Fadi Hafez. I am the systems engineer in Canada, and I work in the global strategic accounts team. So I work with primarily service providers in Canada, which means really large accounts, really interested in automation at this point in time. And my colleagues in the same group actually cover some of the largest accounts for A10 in North America. So we do have accounts that, the size of AT&T and other service providers in the US, as well as IBM. But what I, I was exposed to Ansible by a customer a few years back because they were very interested in automation, and they came to me and said, would you be able to support Ansible? And we had all the hooks in place to make that happen, right? So ACOS, the Advanced Core Operating System, that is the underpinning or the operating system that is used by A10 across all our product lines, has been rewritten. When it went from the version 2.7 or 2.x to version 4, there was a rewrite that took place to ensure that everything in the system was going to be API ready, and it was going to be configurable through API, and you can manage it and read properties through an API. And actually, it was supposed to be a RESTful API. That was right from the get-go. The rewrite had to happen to make sure that everything was going to be RESTful. And that made it possible for Ansible to fit right into that architecture, because the way that the A10 system communicates with Ansible today is through RESTful calls. We don't have an SSH level of communication in this case. All the modules that have been written for Ansible have actually been done through HTTPS, and the authentication happens through headers. You can see in this diagram, users would be executing playbooks, which actually reference the modules, and that would communicate using the Ansible infrastructure into our device and performs tasks such as authentication, the reading of objects, the writing of objects, and the modification of those same objects. So, excuse me. And for this specific customer, they gave me a subset of tasks that they like to actually see performed by Ansible. And it wasn't very difficult at all to prove that this was possible. So they highlighted a list of tasks that needed to be done, and we put together a playbook and went backwards and got the modules developed. Today, there is a rather large list of modules. In fact, every feature that is possible on A10 today that can be configured through the CLI or through the web UI can be done through the API, which means it can be done through Ansible. And all of this is code writing code. So when we generate a new issue, or when we create a new version of ACOS, there is a new subset of these modules that have to be produced, and then customers can use them to create playbooks and manage the system that way. So the tasks, as you can see on the left side, there's continuous deployments, service provisioning, and network provisioning. Every function that A10 has can be done through the API today. Can we go to the next slide, please? Excuse me. So in this case, the provisioning was something of a mandate. In the case of some customers, there's a mandate that takes place. That means no more operations going into an SSH interface and copying and pasting configurations, or even going through web UI and clicking away at the interface. This has to be a file, an actual task list, a playbook that has to be created. Somebody tests it in the lab environment, and then you have to execute it during a maintenance window. So this reduces the input errors from humans, and obviously it scales very, very well, because you can run it hundreds of times across hundreds of instances without ever having to do that in a copy and paste operation. And the way that this is possible is through the ability to have these open APIs, which are very well documented, and it can be done across all the objects, as I mentioned. So can we go to the next slide, please? The requirements from the specific customer were being seen right here. So the idea was it had to work on hardware and virtual instances, and it had to be able to support the old version of ACOS as well as the new version. So I mentioned the ACOS 4 was rewritten to support RESTful calls, and it was basically 100% of the features that can be executed through SSH and through the web UI are done through the API. So ACOS 2.0, the older version of ACOS, does have API support. It wasn't 100%, but it was somewhere in the 80s or 90%, which meant we could still do the majority of the tasks for ACOS 2. But that also meant two different sets of modules needed to be developed one that supported ACOS 2 and one that supported ACOS 4, and a different subset of playbooks needed to run for both. But bottom line is they needed support for both, so that was possible. They needed to make sure it was repeatable and idempotent. So if you executed a playbook multiple times, it would simply make changes to the same objects or ignore if there are actually changes that have been made. It doesn't redo the changes or create multiple objects with the same name, for example. It cannot error out. It has to simply execute successfully and ignore any objects that have already been created a time before that, right? By the way, if anybody has any questions, I'm not sure if this is possible, but please feel free to put your hand up or interrupt, because I realize that going through this material, sometimes people will have questions in the middle of it. I'm happy to answer them. Moving right along, we had to have the capability to add and change, as well as remove elements directly from this interface. And we had to be able to support IPv4 and v6 via virtual IPs, as well as servers in the back end. Following that, we also needed to have ACOS partition support. So this customer has the actual devices partitioned into different domains, layer 3 domains, and they needed to be able to make modifications into each one of these domains for that to happen. Okay, so if you see on the right-hand side there, this is actually an example of the ability to modify VMware, a VMware image prior to it being created. So by creating a VMware template and creating it, when you first start it up, you have the ability to pass in the values specific to the management interface. So when it does start up, you have the ability to connect to this instance. This was basically to be able to do remote access to a virtual machine that runs in VMware. And this was fairly new, and it was very useful for the specific customer. And all of this is actually underneath, you don't see it in here, but it's actually underneath the VMware guest module, which the VR properties belongs inside that VMware guest module. Okay, so can we go to the next slide, please? The capabilities that they wanted when it came to actually creating, adding, deleting, and modifying were broken down into 3 subsets. So management, network, and load balancing components, right? So they wanted to be able to create, modify or actually provision all the syslog servers and the TAC access and MP and everything related to that. They wanted to be able to go one step further in the second phase and make sure they can configure the network interfaces, all the routing and NAT pools and access lists. And then following that, the ability to create all the ADC components that make up a load balancer. So you can see the list here. The 2 more challenging features were the uploading of SSL certificates and downloading, as well as AFlex scripts. So if you're familiar with A10, you'd know that there is a layer 7 scripting language that is built into the ACOS system that allows you to manipulate traffic midstream or use it to steer traffic differently. And that is a file that would reside in the disk system, the file system, and the OS allows you to view it or download it or modify it or delete it. And the API also gives you that ability, but in order to do that, you have to do it in the multi-part message. That was all built into this module specifically. So that already exists today if you're interested in seeing that. Okay, can we go to the next slide then, please? And sorry, I think we already, well, some of this is overlap, but the more pressing or more difficult tasks were actually to do the upgrade and downgrade of an ACOS version. So what happened in the case of a VMware instance being created was it got created based on a template that ran a specific version of ACOS, and they wanted to upgrade it following that. And that was something a little bit trickier, but it's still possible to issue an upgrade command through the API through Ansible and wait a certain amount of time for that instance to come back up before before continuing and exiting from this whole process. And then the other two bullet points at the bottom there being able to upload and download SSL certs. You have the ability to do private and public keys together, or a private key or a public key if you wish. And AFlex, excuse me, is the same concept. So that's it for this slide. Can we go to the next one, please? So the demo is actually, sorry, the demo is not something we can do right now for all of what you see here, but I can certainly share with you an Ansible execution on an A10 vThunder virtual machine instance. Can I get to share my screen by any chance here?
Yeah, while Fadi is sharing his screen, just wanted to give you guys a quick heads up. The engineer who was supposed to do the demo, he's checked into ER. So what I'll do is after Fadi is done, I'll show you a quick demo live here. So how a YAML, take a YAML file, run a playbook, and I'll show you the configuration and a couple of things around that. So Fadi, once you're done, I'll take over the screen from you and we'll do a quick one.
Okay, yeah. Thank you, Jivan. So how do I share my screen in this case? Can I click here, sharing?
I'm going to hand over presenter mode to you.
Okay. All right, thank you, Carrie.
You're
Can
welcome.
you see my screen?
Yep, looks good.
All right. Is the text big enough here?
Maybe a little bit bigger.
Make it bigger? Not sure.
Oh yeah, it's not visible, so maybe you can make the screens bigger.
Better on this side?
Yes.
Oh yeah, this is better. It's under, yeah.
Okay. So this is a live demo. You know, it's let's go big or go home. So here's an instance on the right hand side of vThunder. Let me just hide the control panel. And if you do a show version, you'll see it's 4.1.0p5. This is a fairly recent release. I know the dates are a little bit skewed, but there's been more recent releases. Bottom line is this is a stable version of ACOS that is in the ACOS 4 group. So it's, you know, it's the updated AX API 3.0. It's where we are right now. And you can see that right here in this line. And that's critical because the differences between AX API 2.1 and 3.0, there's changes there. So on this left-hand side is a Ubuntu server, and there are multiple playbooks, and the modules are sitting in a directory called library. They're all Python scripts. We're not going to get into Python here, so let's just stick to the playbooks. What we have is the ability to create a server. And is the color okay by any chance, or is it dark?
It is okay, Fadi.
Okay. All right, wonderful. So this is a playbook to create a pair of servers, SLB or server load balancing servers, nodes, if you want to call them that. And you can see at the top of the file inside the playbook is the host you want to apply this to. So the actual A10 vThunder instance, as well as present, meaning you want to create this rather than delete it. And then following that, the credentials are being prompted for. So you'll see when I run it, it'll ask you for the username and password of the vThunder instance. Inside the module parameters, you'll see a list of parameters, some of which are being obtained from the global variable list above. And this is all Ansible, right? This is the magic that Ansible provides here. Following that is the actual A10 properties that are required. So the server name, the IP address, you want it to start up as enabled, and the actual ports, the layer 4 ports in this case, 1212 and 8080, both TCP, and the port 53 UDP. I'm saying overwrite no in this case because it's if it already exists, just leave it alone. Otherwise, you can have that overwrite if it sees the same object already in the system. The second server is a IPv6 server. So same concept. You're using the same global variables in this case. The partition, I believe we define it at the top, but I don't believe I put one in. So if I put a partition in, it would actually change the partition into a different partition before applying this this configuration. And then all the rest of this is the IP address of the server, IPv6, and all the same ports in this case. Okay. Write config is actually to save it to disk. So we have that. I'm gonna quit without saving, and then let's do Ansible playbook. Let's put some verbose, and then our server, v3. Okay. Let me make this a little bit bigger. It's asking for the username and password. I put in the username and password, and you can see it executes. It ran OK twice, and it changed 2 items. Because I ran it in verbose, you can see all the details. And if I go over to this side and do a show run, you can see I've just created the 2 servers right here, right? These 2 servers were actually created based on this. If you don't believe me, I'm going to run it again. And it's not going to change anything. So 0 changed, meaning it already found these objects. It didn't have to change anything. I'm going to remove them from this side. So I'm already in config mode. Show run SLB server. Let's get rid of the first server. Let's get rid of the second server. I can do a show run SLB server. Those servers don't exist anymore, right? Yeah, the servers that were there before are still there. These ones are not. So now, if you run this one more time, and then do show SLB server again, you can see them being created again, right? If somebody wishes, let's just say there was a change and you would like to add, and this is a bit risky because I haven't done this in a while. So let's try changing one port, add another port, 8443, and run it. Okay, yeah, so in this case, the server, this did not change. I have to delete the server and then re-add it in this case. I think there has been modifications that have included the ability to update, but this, I'm sorry, the version I have right now is not up to date. So if we go back to the slides, anybody have any questions, by the way?
I think there was one question, it looks like you're using the module, the A10 server v3 module.
Yeah.
Looks like the v3, is that an updated version compared to what's in the Ansible distribution? It seems to be the v3 piece is a little different. That's on your GitHub.
Yeah, thank you for that question. I did not clear this up. So this is actually work that I was doing on the side prior to A10 taking full control of Ansible and developing, the most stable and better modules, if you will. This is stuff that was done by myself. These are actually modules and playbooks that I used for the customer initially, and then A10 has taken that work, and you'll see the list of modules that I have are very limited. But if you were to go on the GitHub page that is shared on the website, or I'm sorry, in the slide deck, you'll notice there's very, very many modules in this case, and the modules have gone through rigorous testing as opposed to the ones that I have here. But what I am demoing here is the capability of Ansible to be able to use our API. So I did a show audit to be able to actually execute functions and create results in ACOS today. That's the only thing. If we had a full-fledged demo like we were supposed to, it would have been probably the GitHub that you see that you're probably familiar with if you've used Ansible with A10 before. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, Fadi, what I was going to say is talk a little bit about our audit capability on the Thunder. So that is very, very powerful when someone is doing some trials or tests with Ansible. So that is where they can go immediately and check the audit log and see what API call was made, what payload was sent over, and what happened. So this is really powerful. This gives you the ability to make any tweaks, changes, anything that you want to do.
Yes, absolutely. That's a really good point, Jivan. And actually, this is the show audit that you see on the screen right here. So you see all the commands, the most recent. Another really valuable tool that was used to develop some of these is to show JSON config. So everyone that's familiar with ACOS will know the show running config, which is Cisco iOS like. But if you do a show JSON config, you will see the entire configuration printed in a JSON format, and every element has a UUID, which means you can actually go in and configure any one of these UUIDs using Ansible. That's the key as well. But typically, if you just want to know how an Ethernet interface looks like in ACOS, this is it right here, right? It's very apparent, very obvious to a user what it looks like. That was exactly how these modules have been developed. The actual modules that are in GitHub are developed by a program. So someone actually wrote a program that generates all that for you. So
yeah, all of those modules in GitHub, they are auto-generated, and those are the ones we're going to port to the library on Red Hat Ansible.
Mm-hmm.
If you are done, yeah, you can pass on the sharing privileges to me, and so I'll just walk through that module.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. So I hope you can see my screen. Can someone confirm that you're able to see my screen? Yeah. Okay. Good. So I was going to show you like Fadi just talked about the module that we have on GitHub. So I'm going to just show you that because that was the one I had loaded up, but was not planning to show this. So here's my module. Before I get into the actual, let me show you the library. So I now pulled this from GitHub. So I should have everything, and I'm going there. So CD A10. So this is where you can see like I've got like all the modules. There are about like 1400 plus modules, to be exact, like 1450 or something. Those are the number of modules. So it's pretty much kind of like you have a module for every CLI command that you would execute on the box. So it's all 100% REST API based and compliant. Now, what I want to show you the same thing. So we have a module here. So I'm going to go to my playbooks. So here I have a couple of playbooks. I'm going to just do a quick test. So if I run this playbook, so I'm going to show you this before I go there. So I'm going to clear the audit so we can actually see what happened. And we do show an SLB server. I have a couple of them, but I don't have something called a web server, right? You see. So I'm just creating one of the objects. So this is going to run through it with verbose. So it gives you all the details. It tells you what happened, what changed, and what went through. You can, if you are kind of like you want to hack into it and find out what happened, you can go through the logs in detail and figure out. Otherwise, here you can just do like the same thing. You can check this, and you see the server the server configuration came in. Now, if you want to check the API logs, so here you can see this is this was the JSON payload that was, and then the post command. So we use now other thing you can do is the same things you can do is show JSON config, and you can even go as deep as like you can say, hey, I want to see the JSON configuration only for the server object. So that shows you the server objects and shows you the exact configuration for that server. So you can, we have, if I go back to my YAML file here, you will see that, okay, I have a bunch of parameters now. Not all of them are mandatory, so you can start with something like the required ones, or you can, and you can keep adding, or you can remove those parameters based on what you want to provide. But you can, but if you want to see what are all the parameters, you can come here and you can see way more than what you pass on the parameters and the values. This is where I'm going to take you to the our official our GitHub page, where we have all the modules available. You can do either a you can do a Git clone or pull from this, pull this one from here, or you can use a Python package or pip to install it on your Ansible system. So here's our library. It's all built using the SDK generator or the auto generator that we have. So it's also available here on the GitHub page. If you want to use the auto generator, you will need to know like how this works. But then instructions on how to install the package and all that is available here. There's best practices and all documented in the README file. Under this is the library where you have all the modules. We have about 1,400, as I said, like we have 1,400 plus ones, and they are available for all your CG and ADC for this one. Then here's where you can go ahead and also check out some examples. So we have also provided examples for you, so you don't have to kind of start figuring out how to create those playbooks. So you have a lot of example playbooks that you can use. So for example, I use the one for server. So there's a playbook example for how to create your server. Let's see where it is. So this one, for example, it tells you, okay, how can you create? So we have one for create, delete, and update. Of course, if you are familiar with it, you don't have to go and through each one. It is almost same, except that except a few changes. But this is the one way which you can use for to start with, like a simple script, right? So it's a simple playbook. This is where we have. This is our landing page on Ansible. We can update it with the V3 libraries. Thanks for pointing that out. So we're working on that one. Yeah, that's what I wanted to show, and I want to see if you guys have any questions that we can answer today, or what, or where do we go from here. Thank you.
Great. I will go ahead and take back the presenter mode.
Sorry, just one more thing, if I can just add. So we're highlighting ADC, but the RESTful API works across all ACOS platforms today. So I'm working with a customer on carrier grade NAT today, and just that's just something that everybody should know. Thank you.
So great. So what this slide is talking about here is that Jivan and Fadi talk about a lot of ADC load balancer use cases from our existing customers. And here is just a sort of recap on what we have done in the Ansible Fest in Austin, Texas last year. So basically what this is, we had a speaking session talking about DDoS protection. A lot of, there's a block here, I don't know what WebEx is not loading, it's actually YouTube video. We can put it in our GitHub report as well. Basically, there is an existing lab and a lot of a simple YAML script and help you to do the cloud scrubbing. And this is another session that we're going to do with the Ansible team, is to showcase our DDoS protection and vulnerability scanning technology that we have. And so the next slide, please. I think this is, we have time for a Q&A at this point. like Jivan just mentioned earlier, all the existing examples on SLB on ADC side, you can find from this link here. And if you have any further questions or any kind of a development related, you should say you want to send a notice, email to A10 team. You can use the Ansible at a10networks.com. So I guess we can see if there's any question here. Take a look. So are there questions? Let's see. I think there is a question here talking about, is that always a, probably this is probably a question probably better for you. It's like, do I need to be the Python expert to be using A10 scripting here, since in your demo there's a lot of Python scripting there? Can you kind of catch up, see how you will answer that?
Yeah, no, I wouldn't say so. I mean, the Ansible modules are designed in a way where so long as you know YAML and you understand the playbooks, you should be good. And even for the playbooks, it's a simple copy and paste operation with some modification. So it's very basic. If you want to use Ansible Tower, you're welcome to go even further and use a GUI for all that. So no, absolutely not. There shouldn't be anybody really doing anything with Python. If all is working as it should be, then no.
Okay, thank you. So there's another question here. I'm not sure, Jivan, you want to take this or Fadi could. I know the Ansible approach to a lot of this enterprise module is on the support issue, on the enterprise support. So who will be supporting your Ansible modules? Would it be A10 or Red Hat Ansible?
I think, Cynthia, it depends. So if, let's say, the customer is running a playbook YAML and he cannot figure out, okay, what objects or what goes in, and he has some specific questions on the YAML file or on the module is failing on to execute that YAML file, that is something that they should open a case with A10, and we will help out with our support, and we will be glad to jump on a call or email the customer and work through it and resolve it. But yeah, if you are having some issues when you try to run the module, you're running into some errors with where Ansible fails to run, then that would go back to Ansible team, so they can help you out, sanitize and get your Ansible environment up and running.
Yeah, definitely. So and also on our side, from the BD and Alliances side, we're going to work with Ansible more closely on getting this certified going forward. So you'll see a lot of new things get added in the 19th. So okay, so this question I can probably help answer. This question is, do you have a centralized management approach or services for Ansible module deployment? I guess earlier Jivan mentioned the Harmony controller, and that is a brain, that is the center of our application delivery services, as well as analytic engine there. So today we do support across ACOS, we support the REST API, the fully compatible, so you could simply access it, and someone would develop the module and get it loaded in GitHub, and you can basically git clone and deploy those. I think those are something that's definitely doable with a Harmony controller approach as well. And that, yeah, that's if you're interested in the Harmony controller, you can find more information, A10 Networks, a website, look for centralized management and cloud management. You'll see a lot of information there. Let's see. Okay, so the last one is on the DDoS access lab. Yeah, since we couldn't really see the WebEx playback on the YouTube video, so what I would do is, we'll post it in the GitHub, like I mentioned earlier, and with the lab access as well as the YAML script access. And altogether, there are over about 15-something YAML scripts that, if you're interested in leverage those scripts for your DDoS experiment, definitely more than welcome to do. And it is that particular session is actually posted in YouTube as well. So we'll share the link after this webinar. I think that's it. Are there more questions, guys?
I think that's it.
Okay, all right, sounds good.
Well,
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, the entire A10 team. We really appreciate it. And for all of our attendees, we will be sharing this recording in a follow-up email probably tomorrow. I just need to get it recorded or converted and uploaded, and we'll send that email out. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you for hosting us.
Thank you, folks, for hosting us, and also the attendees for joining.
Yep.
Thank you so
Thanks,
much.
everybody.
Appreciate it. Have a good day, everybody.
Bye.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.